So we are discussing module first of public international law, that is nature and development of international law, wherein four segment we have to see. First is nature and definition of international law, that we had covered and come to the conclusion that the Professor J.G. Stark had given comprehensive definition covering all aspects of the international law which are necessary in the changing context of the world. And this definition was accepted by the international community as a complete one. The second segment that we have to see is theoretical perspective for the basis of international law, on what basis international law is developed, jurisprudential basis in other words. The third segment we have to see historical development in international law, and fourthly we have to study whether codification is started in international law or whether there is any initiatives made by the United Nations for codification of the international law. So today we will see the second segment, that is theoretical basis of international law. Now theory, you are already aware, theory is nothing but the kind of conceptual base given by certain jurists, that because of these and these situations certain rules are there. Like in Indian Penal Code, is you see that because of the punishments people follow the law. So rigorous theory should be there. Thereby, yes. आवाज येत नाहीये का? No. Some are commenting no. येतोय. Okay. Yes. So theories we can hear. Yes. Okay. So theories are nothing but the doctrinal base created by certain authors to justify certain rules, like rigorous theory justifying the theory of death penalty, so that rigor can be created among the community from commission committing that particular kind. So here we have to see the jurisprudential basis for the development of international law. In the introduction itself we discussed that there were four theories covered in this syllabus justifying the base for international law. One is natural law theory, another is positive law theory, then third one is Grotius theory, and fourth one is consent theory. So first we will see the natural law theory and how international law is justified on the basis of natural law theory. So what natural law theory is? So natural law theory says that law is nothing but the product of nature. Law comes from the nature itself, and nature means the God. Now this theory establishes the relationship of law with the morality. God means the moral principles. So the jurist who adheres to this theory are of the view that international law is a part of law of nature. In their view, the states follow certain rules, states behave with each other in certain way because it is part of the law of nature. So according to Stark, same Stark whose definition was accepted, he says states submitted to international law because their relations were regulated by higher law. Higher law means the law of nature, or which is emanated from the God. So in order to understand this theory, it is necessary to understand the meaning of the law of nature, that what natural law they mean to say. So in the beginning, the law of nature was connected with the religion because the moral principle flows from religion in every religious philosophy, be it a Hinduism, Muslim, Christians, Jain, in every religion. The moral principles emanate from the religion. So it was regarded as the divine law. Natural law is nothing but the law given by God, or whatever said by the God is correct. So the jurists of 16th and 17th centuries later secularized the concept of law, of nature. So the credit goes to Grotius. He expounded the secularized concept of law of nature. According to him, natural law was the dictate of right reason. So it is not the God, but what right-minded person thinks reasonable, that is the law, and not what God thinks reasonable. So he secularized concept of natural law. It is not the law emanated from God, but it is the right reason, or in other words, moral principles are considered as a part of natural law. So his followers applied the law of nature as an ideal law, which was founded on the nature of man as a reasonable being, means what self-conscious of particular individual sees, what the right reason provides, that is considered as a law. So international law considered as binding because it was in the fact natural law applied in special circumstances. So the famous jurist Vattel in 18th century expressed the view that natural law was the basis of international law. Why world is coming together? Why nations cooperating with each other? Because they want to behave morally. Because they their right reason mandates them to cooperate with each other. Thereby, international law is nothing but the outcome of the natural law theory. So, thereby, these authors justified the international law on the basis of natural law theory. Because not only international law, they justified every law. Why people follow law? Because they were moral and they were self conscious enough to follow the law. So every law emanates from the God, and morality is the source of every law. Similarly, for international law also, and thereby natural law theory, as per them, is the basis for international law. However, this aspect was criticized by other jurists that it is not so. The natural law is not always the basis of international law. So the critics of this theory says that the they are of the view that it is the basis of international law and has conferred binding force on international law is not correct. However, the follower of law of nature gives its different meaning. They said that natural law is nothing but the metaphor. Metaphor means which is not real, it is only in abstract sense, because the God cannot be asked, he cannot be made responsible for making any provision, or why he is made certain provision. He cannot be held accountable. That's what it is, metaphor. So different jurists give its different meaning, such as reason, justice, utility. Some are saying it the product of morality, outcome of the morality. Therefore, the natural law making the meaning of law itself is vague and uncertain. And therefore, this defect was found in this theory, and it is not based on the realities and actual practice of the states. Further, even the source of law of natural law is morality, but what morality is, that cannot be defined. Morality differs from person to person, society to society. One thing may be moral in one state or it may be immoral in another state. Therefore, this source cannot be relied upon. Say, for example, marriages among transgenders or same sex marriages may be moral in Scandinavian or some other countries, but whether they moral or not is a question in another country. Therefore, this theory was criticized. So, some author justified that international natural law is the base for international law. Some had criticized it. Then we will move towards the second theory, that is positive law theory. This theory was emerged as an answer for criticism on natural law. So now, as per natural lawyers, the law is a product of God. But as per this theory, positivist, it is the product of man, human being. The law is made by the human being. So what modernly observed as a law, that is the positivist approach or positive law theory. So positivism is based upon the concept that it is contrast with the natural law, because natural law says what law ought to be, but it says that positivist says what law should be or what law is. मराठीमध्ये लॉ कसा असायला पाहिजे हे नॅचरल लॉयर सांगतात, पण लॉ असा असा आहे हे पॉझिटिव्हिस्ट सांगतात. सो अकॉर्डिंग टू द पॉझिटिव्हिस्ट, law enacted by appropriate legislative authority is binding. Therefore, they says natural law is not a law. Yes, it is a gift of God, it is product of God, religious philosophy, etc. But positivist says law is only that which is enacted by the legislature. So that is only binding. Law emanated by God cannot be considered as a binding. You will study in detail these theories in jurisprudence. We are having certain aspects only. Sorry. So the positivists base their view on the actual practice of states. In their views, treaties and customs are the main sources of law and not the natural principles. So the positivism became popular in 18th and 17th century with the naturalist and Grotians view become popular. So the positivists claim to have based their theory on the actual practice of states and not on the morality. So law which is in fact is considered as a law. In view of the positivist, will of the state is the main source of international law and not the morality and not the God. What state collectively make considered appropriate, that is law. That may be moral or immoral. So, as pointed out by Stark, international law can in logic be reduced to the system of rules depending for their validity only on the fact that states have consented to them. So, consent among the state is the basis. So, again, this approach goes with the consent theory. Similarly, as pointed out by Brierly, the doctrine of positivism teaches that international law is the sum of rules by which states have consented to bound, and that nothing can be a law to which they have not consented. So, treaties today, if the state doesn't participate into any treaty, those principles were not binding on particular states. So, binding force of international law is founding on the supreme principle or norm that is called as pacta sunt servanda. It means agreement entered into must be respected. God doesn't say that follow the agreements, even though it says whether it is to be followed or not depends upon the concerned state. So consent or man-made treaties are the basis for international law or man-made law, in other words. In his view, the basis of each rule of international law is treaties entered into, or the maxim pacta sunt servanda is the basis. That is, treaties entered into must have to be observed. But here also, positivists were also criticized that not all the time these things will be treated. Even human beings has to rely upon the principles of natural law for making legislation. So they criticized on the point that the concept of will of state presented by the positivists is purely metaphorical. Therefore, the view of positivists that the whole of international law is based on the consent of state is not true. Even there were certain principles which were binding on the state, even though they were not part of international community, such as principle of human rights, human values, etc. So, and similarly, the customary international law, the customary practices among the state, even though it was not covered into the treaty, it is binding on the state. So, to make customary international law binding upon the state, no consent is required, no human intervention is required. A new state entering the community of nations at once become bound by the international customary rules. That is, the diplomatic agent received in another state should not be injured. This is the customary practice, and this has to be observed even though there were no treaties to deal with this aspect. And this is the principle of natural law, that the guest should not be harmed with. That is the principle emanated from God. So there are some principles of international law which are applicable on states, although state did not give their consent to them. So irrespective of consent, certain principles are binding. And this was stated in the Charter of United Nations, Article 2, that principles of United Nations are binding on the non-members. Those who are not members of United Nations, they also have to observe certain principles that we will see in module 12 what those principles are. So according to the positivist views, the treaties and customs are the only source of international law. However, according to Grotians, international law has originated not only from the custom and treaties but also from the natural law. So the positivists were also criticized on this aspect. Then third, we will move towards third theory, that is Grotius theory. Now Hugo Grotius, he criticized both theory and propounded his own theory. So he secularized the concept of natural law. Natural law was early dependent upon the religious principles, but he converted it into the principle of right reason. It may be religious or may not be. Right reason it what is right or what is correct, what is as per human values, that is considered as a secularized concept of natural law, not what particular religion says. So Hugo Grotius, in his book called as Mare Liberum, it was published in the year 1609, wherein he propounded certain principles relating to law of sea. But we are not concerned with those principles here. But he also published one another book in 1625 on the law of war and peace, wherein he covered these both theories and propounded his own theories. So he was studied by Professor Oppenheim, and he says the science of modern law of nations commences from the Grotius work, that is, law of war and peace. In Latin, it is called as De Jure Belli Ac Pacis. आता याला आपल्याला मराठीत इक्विव्हॅलंट नाहीये. हे लॅटिन शब्द आहे, पण इंग्रजीत आहे लॉ ऑफ वॉर अँड पीस. शांतता आणि युद्ध या काळात काय नियम असायला पाहिजे ते ग्रोशसनं कलेक्शन करून सांगितलं. आणि ते कलेक्शन करताना या दोन्ही फिलॉसॉफी एकत्र केल्या, नॅचरल लॉ आणि पॉझिटिव्हिस्ट लॉ. नॅचरल लॉ म्हणजे धर्मावर आधारित असलेला किंवा देवाकडून आलेले नियम, आणि पॉझिटिव्हिस्ट म्हणजे माणसानं तयार केलेले नियम. तर याचं मिक्सचर ग्रोशियसनं मांडलं. सो ही हॅज फॉलोइंग 4 मेन कॅरेक्टरिस्टिक्स. In the first place, he advocates that states should also be subject to same rules which regulate the individuals. So this is the principle of natural law. की जे नियम माणसांना किंवा वैयक्तिक लोकांना असतील तेच नियम राज्यांना पण लागू होतील. कारण पॉझिटिव्हिस्ट अप्रोच नुसार states are immune. State cannot be held responsible or king cannot be held responsible. So this approach was modified by the Grotius. He says whatever is applicable to individual is applicable to states. Secondly, formulated the law of peace, which subsequently become the basis of his whole system. So peace is the principle of natural law, to bring peace into the world. And thirdly, he contended that states violating the law may be punished by other states. So state can suffer punishment, but as per positivist view, states cannot be punished. And fourthly, in his view, natural law, that is right reason, was the basis of determining rules for rightful conduct of states. So their internal instinct of state should decide what is the right course of action by taking into account the principles of humanity. Therefore, Grotius' work obtained the worldwide influence, and he was later called as father of the law of nations. Then we will move towards last theory, that is consent. Now this theory is accepted and it covers all, or this is the last theory on which international law today work, because in international law everything is depend upon the consent given by the state, barring few instances wherein the United Nations Charter itself says no consent is required, such as customary international law, etc. So, in view of the supporters of this theory, consent of state is the basis of international law. So, international law is developed on the basis of consent and nothing else. So, state observes rules of international law because they have given their own consent to it. राज्य आंतरराष्ट्रीय कायदा पाळतात, देश आंतरराष्ट्रीय कायदा पाळतात कारण त्यांनी तशी संमती ट्रीटीच्या माध्यमातून दिलेली. ते संयुक्त राष्ट्र संघटनेचे सभासद आहेत म्हणून ते कायदा पाळतात. त्यांना ते बरोबर वाटतं, योग्य वाटतं किंवा धर्मानं सांगितलंय, देवानं सांगितलंय म्हणून नाही पाळत. त्यांनी स्वतःची कन्सेंट दिली आहे तिथं संयुक्त राष्ट्र संघाकडे, ट्रीटी सबमिट केली म्हणून ते कायदा पाळतात. So states observe rules of international law because they have given their consent for it. And positivists have given much support to this view because it is man-made approach. And the chief exponent of these theories are Oppenheim, Trippel, and Anzilotti. These authors were there in your study material. So this theory fails to explain the basis of customary international law. So lacuna in this theory is, what about customary international law? For that, there is no any consent. Custom is developed on the basis of state practice. So the customary rules are applicable irrespective of consent. In the view of the supporter of this theory, states are bound to observe customary rules of international law because they have given their implied consent. Now, defense to this is made as an implied consent for their acceptance. That customary practices were impliedly accepted by the state once they become the members of international community. Therefore, even for customary law, there is consent. So this theory was also subjected to criticism by several jurists like Stark, Brearley, Kelson, Fenwick, and the criticism made by them is, the first, Stark pointed out that in practice it is not necessary to prove that the other state or states have given their consent in regard to specific rule of international law. So consent is not mandatory for certain rules. He is talking about customary international law. Secondly, Professor Smith says all states are bound by international law, no matter whether they were given their consent or not. So again, Smith is going towards natural law, and in regard to customary rules of international law, the basis of implied consent is not correct. So, implied consent is not accepted under international law. And the states are bound by general international law even against their will. So, here Professor Kelson has cited the example of new states which get right and duties under international law immediately after becoming the subject of international law. So here, theory of consent fails to explain the case of recognition of new state because the granting of recognition is the act of other state, and hence it would be wrong to say by getting recognition the recognized states has given its consent in respect of international law. So by this way, these four theories justify the basis for international law, or even in conclusion, you may conclude that the four theories, though contrary to each other, but they are overlapping in nature, and international law is nothing but the mixture of all theories. One theory cannot be said to be accepted fully because, again, it depends not only in international law but in all other laws. The international law and its development depend upon the all theories or particular rules can be taken from particular theory. One single theory is not concrete or not enough to substantiate the basis of international law because in some aspect consent is required, in other aspect express consent is required, or even treaties express rules can be required. So these theories are overlapping in nature in some extent, and ultimately the state practices today in the modern world decide what international rule should be there. However, these authors tried to justify, as per their own way, what is the basis for international law. So, with this, we had discussed the theoretical basis for international law. If you are having any query over this, you can comment in chat box.